All right, guys, so it's success time, and your activity that you're working on today is called Magic Squares. And so this is going to help us with our adding integer rules. Remember, adding integers, you're either joining forces or going to war. And so let me show you how this works. Now, the instructions are there, step 1, 2, and 3. Let me give you a visual demonstration of what this is. There's 10 questions. And every question is going to give us a different answer. Well, I shouldn't say a different answer. It could get the same answer theoretically on 2 of the problems. Okay. And so then our answer that we get is going to correspond to, at the bottom, a letter of the alphabet, which is going to spell out a secret phrase. Okay. So for number 1, we can do this one together. Step 1 says, pick a number, any number you want, in the grid and circle it. Cross out all the other numbers in that same row and column as that number. So let's just say I want to circle the number 1 because why not? Seems easy enough. So what I'm going to do is then scratch out all the other numbers in that row and in that column. I'll just do one line. I guess that's probably easier. Okay. Then step 2, repeat step 1. Circle any number that has not been crossed out. So most of them are still available. Okay. And then cross out all the numbers that are in that row and column and keep doing this until you have 5 numbers circled. Okay, so number 2, I'm actually gonna circle number 2. It's available. So I'm gonna scratch out all the numbers in that row and all the numbers that were in that column. Then I pick a different number. Why not 5? And so you don't have to pick the same numbers as me. You can pick any of the numbers you want as long as you're making sure you're not picking a number that should be crossed out. Scratch out all the numbers that are in that row and in that column. And then that leaves me, maybe I could do -4. So I scratch out all the numbers that are in that row that haven't already been scratched out and in that column. And then that's just going to leave me with 1 number. So by the time you circle your 5th number, there's really no choice. So there's only 1 number that's remaining. Okay, so now we're on to step 3. Add all the circled numbers together. Now, you're always going to have some positive and some negative numbers. And so what I would encourage you to do is add your positive numbers together. So join forces with the same signed integers, right? If they're positive, join them together. And if they're negative, join them together. And then once you get your positive and your negative number, you could go to war. So here's what I mean by that. I'm going to add my positives together, which are 1, 2, 9, and 5. 1 and 9 makes 10. 5 and 2 makes 7. So that's 17. And then I'm going to throw in my negative number, which is -4. And because I have different, so that's positive 17 and -4, because they have different signs, when I add those 2 numbers together, we're going to go to war, we're going to subtract, and we're going to keep the sign of the larger army. Okay, so the positives win this one by 13. So my answer is 13. Okay. Now, the number 13 corresponds to a letter in the alphabet. So if you really wanted to, I guess you could Google the letters of the alphabet in case you've forgotten any. But 13, let's see, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. So there's 10, K, L, M. So M is the 13th letter of the alphabet. So I'm going to put an M right there. Okay, and then I'm just going to continue that for all 10 problems. Whatever answer I get, it's going to be a letter of the alphabet. So the number corresponds to a letter. So you might be thinking, well, what happens if I get a negative answer? Good question. You're not going to. All of these will give you positive answers. So even though you have negative numbers that you're going to circle, you're always going to have more positives than you do negatives when you go to war. So the positive army will always win. And so you can have an actual letter from the alphabet because of that. That being said, if you put your positive number and list it first, it'll always be the larger number because you're going to end up with a positive answer, and put your negative sum underneath, you can just subtract and get your answer that way. Now you might be thinking, what is so magic about this? This just sounds like work. Why is this magical? Okay, I'm going to show you something different. We're going to pick a different 5 numbers. So what if I pick 34 this time? Scratch out these numbers, scratch out these numbers. -28. I'm just trying to pick big ones to show you. Scratch out these numbers, scratch out those numbers. Scratch out those numbers. There we go. Scratching out the numbers from the row and column. How about -18? Make it as hard as possible, right? Scratch out those numbers. 24. Scratch out these, and that leaves me with my one number left, which is that 1 on the top left. So a completely different set of 5 numbers this time. Add your positive numbers together. 34 and 1 makes 35. 35 and 24 makes 59. Add your negative numbers together, because they're going to join forces, right? So you could think of you're adding all 5 numbers together. I'm just saying, since you can do it in whatever order you want to do it, you might as well add your positives together and then add your negatives together and then add those two. Negative 28, negative 18 makes negative 46. Watch what happens when I subtract that. Boom, 13. As long as you're picking different numbers that aren't in the same row and column, right? So that you can't just pick, oh, I'm going to pick these 5 right here. That's not going to work because you have to scratch out those. As long as you're picking numbers that are in the same row and column, you're going to have the same answer as the person next to you, and you are allowed to work in partners. So you can either decide to work with the same numbers with your partner or let them try a different way of doing theirs and see if you get the same answer. So 13 corresponds to the letter M. You're going to get a different answer for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. You're going to get different letters. If you think you know what the phrase is, that's awesome. You can predict what do you think it's going to be, and you probably are going to figure it out pretty quick. You still need to show your work and answer the questions, even if you think you might know what that last part of the phrase is. Eventually, you're probably going to get it. So that's how you do magic squares, and that's why they're magical. So let me know if you have any questions. Oh, by the way, you can't turn this in on Google Classroom. We're just going to talk about it during SLT tomorrow. So try to finish it this class period.